Hi folks, this is Nancy from Paper Moon Tarot and welcome to my channel. I wanted to do something a little different today. I recently got a deck called the Lazy Crow Tarot, and this is by Nicholas Craggle, and I really like it. It's a very simple art style deck, but it reminded me of another deck that I'd gotten, the MidCenturian Tarot, which is by Madame Clara of 5-cent tarot fame. And they both have simple boxes, MidCenturian and Lazy Crow. The Lazy Crow is hard-sided box, a hard-sided box, and a tough box for MidCenturian. But it struck me when I got the Lazy Crow that these decks are both very simple, very easy to read, and I like that. I got the MidCenturian a while ago, and I often pull it out and say, I just need that. I don't need all the fancy artwork that sometimes you struggle in decks to say, well, which card is that, or what does that mean, or where are the symbols that I'm used to from the traditional RWS. But sometimes you want something a little simpler. Hence the title of this video, Keep It Simple, Stupid, which you're not stupid, I'm not stupid, but it's an old acronym, KISS. Just keep it simple. So that's what this video is about, just taking a quick look at these two decks that I like, that reminded me of each other, and that I think help you when you just want, not the RWS, for some reason you feel like some different art, something simple and straightforward. So I'm going to take a look at that. I've shown you the boxes of the Lazy Crow and the MidCenturian. They don't have any kind of guidebook or little white book included. So when I say simple, I mean simple. The decks are very similar, plain card type stock, linen finishes for both of them. The Lazy Crow is thinner than the MidCenturian, so I think the cardstock is a little bit thinner, but they feel very similar in the hand. You know, when you hold one of the cards, they feel similar. The backs of the MidCenturian are mid-century, mod-looking, fun. They're probably not technically reversible, but with all that going on, I'm not sure you'd know if you got a card that was upside down. The Lazy Crow is indeed reversible, obviously. I'm sorry for the glare here. I'm trying to avoid the sun, which we hardly ever get, so it's unusual for me. The card size is actually identical, pretty much a standard tarot deck size. So I just wanted to flip through like the major arcana to give you an idea of what these decks look like and why I think of them as just simple decks. Little different art styles, but very simple. So let's go for it. Here is the Fool. Now, the Lazy Crow has a fun sort of drawn watercolored artwork, and the MidCenturian is collage-y, but collage-y, I don't know, art, you know, they're more like taking pieces of construction paper of different colors and creating a collage out of them. I'm sure it's digital, but that's the feeling. But again, both very simple looking. And I'm holding these, they are the same size, but I'm holding them at different heights. So there's our Fool, and in both of them we have the dog and the flower and the backpack and the mountains and someone about to step off a cliff. So when I said these are simple, they do have lots of the imagery of the traditional RWS cards. So if you want something just simple, maybe the person you're reading for needs some simple imagery, but you want the symbols to refer to. These are great decks for that. They have borders. The MidCenturian has obviously a much narrower border, but I kind of like the Lazy Crow with the little number here, and it's there also in the pips, only smaller, so you can differentiate. The border just kind of works for me. So that's the Fool. Look at the Magician. The artist for the Lazy Crow does Celtic design work usually. So you'll see that through some of the cards. Obviously he's simplified his artwork for these, but there's some beautiful little Celtic sort of art images in there. And the MidCenturian, again, I love the high top hat on this guy. But both of them have all of the elements in them. And very nice. The High Priestess. Both have columns behind them. They have, actually I think the MidCenturian has a little more going on with, well, the moon is in both of them, but the MidCenturian has a cross on the High Priestess and a book in her, or a scroll in her hand. And the High Priestess in the Lazy Crow is a little more simple. But see what I mean? They just are very simple, straightforward art, easy to read, lots of the symbolism that we're used to. And I love them both. I think they're both really cool decks. The Empress. The MidCenturian has pomegranates in her lap, and the Lazy Crow has a sheaf of wheat. So lots of the typical symbolism. Now, one thing I will point out, the MidCenturian has huge bold numbers here for the major arcana and the name of the card in big letters. And you know, if you ever have trouble reading the titles of cards, this deck is wonderful for that. The numbers, everything's right up front. It's easy to read. The Lazy Crow doesn't have titles. It has large Roman numerals for the major arcana and smaller ones for the minor arcana, and all the symbols you need for the suits, you know, the cups and so forth, are in the images. So it's very easy to read, but it doesn't have the titles here that the MidCenturian has. Okay, let's look at the Emperor. Very different feel in these in terms of colors. The Hierophant, I think, is an interesting comparison because, you know, coincidentally, they're both very red, and the Hierophants both have keys and staffs. Again, a lot of the traditional imagery to help you out, but in a very simplified form, and with what I think is fun art. I like this kind of art. The Lovers. One of the things about the Lazy Crow is that it's a very diverse deck. When you look at the images, there are people of different skin colors, there are people of different body sizes. There's one card that has someone in a wheelchair. The MidCenturian is less like that, but you'll find in the MidCenturian that you have people with blue faces, gray faces, beige faces, darker beige faces. I don't think it's as purposely diverse, but because of the art style, because it's basically cartoony, it's not very identifiable who these people are. So it's like an animal deck in the sense that you're not focused on their race or their culture and so on. But I bring that up on this card because if you look at the Lover's card in the Lazy Crow, you've got two women, two men, two different colors of people, and it's up to you who's looking at who. You know, is this woman looking at this man? Are these two women looking at each other? Are the two men? You know, up to you how you want to interpret the card, and I think that's kind of a clever way to do that diversity. Okay. Look at the I'm sorry, the Chariot. It's hard to tell from reverse. The Chariot in either deck is again pretty traditional. The MidCenturian has a more like a wand in his hand, and in the Lazy Crow it's more like a sword. It is a sword. They both have creatures, and they both have these sort of, you know, these little hat things that sphinxes wear, but here it's really sphinxes, and here it's almost human-like faces on some sort of animal with a sphinx hat. But again, I think both these decks really try to incorporate the traditional imagery and do it in a very simple, artistic way that I really like. I really suggest you check these decks out. Okay, here's our Strength card. And our Hermit. Really kind of like the Lazy Crow. It's gone to all sort of grays. Someone out in the dark in the mountains, and blues in the MidCenturian. Both have their lanterns and their staffs. And a sense of illumination in the swirly lines here and in the lines coming out here. And I realize I'm kind of peering down below the cards just to see them in the monitor. Ignore the woman behind the cards, okay? There's our Wheel of Fortune. Again, in the Lazy Crow, you can see that Celtic influence from the artist, which is very pretty. Oh. Here's Justice. Different color palette on these two. But again, the colors kind of in the cards in general, kind of primary blues and reds and yellows that keep with that simple art feel. And I also think that both of them have a good sense of humor. And I think I got the Hangman upside down. I think this one, the Hangman, even has the name upside down. Unless I'm holding it wrong, in which case the Hangman is right side up and the name is. But that's part of the humor I was talking about. It's fun. Death. Now the one in the Lazy Crow is not on a horse, but they both have the flag with that rose sort of symbol on it. Both have the skull figure. I keep holding them at different levels so this looks much smaller, but it's not. Just me being backwards in the camera. Okay, here is Temperance. I kind of love how in the Lazy Crow she's pouring them straight up and down instead of with some angle between the two cups. It's probably not possible in the law of physics, but it's kind of fun to look at. The Devil. The horns look similar. They both have creatures below them. The Tower. Interestingly, in the Lazy Crow, there is nobody falling, but the tower's about to break from under that guy. I think he's in for a hard time. And a little more traditional in the MidCenturian, where people are actually falling from the tower. Star. And again, you've got the very simple sort of nude woman figures. Our moon. We don't have some sort of shellfish crawling out of the water at the bottom. In fact, in the one in the Lazy Crow, there really isn't even water, unless that path is like a river. So slightly different on this one. But both have the columns and the dogs. And the moon. Sun. Both the babies and the horse and the sun. Judgment. Again, very similar with people below, the person with the horn above. The MidCenturian does have that cross, the red cross that Pamela Coleman Smith had in her card. Sorry, it's even harder to catch the light quite right now. Light has a way of changing as the day goes on. Have you noticed that? And then the world. So that's the major arcana of these two decks, the Lazy Crow and the MidCenturian. And I love them both. I think they're just fun, simple to use decks when you just can't deal with intuiting another art piece in a deck. You just want something simple that has the majority of the symbols for you in an art style that you prefer perhaps to the traditional RWS, and is fun and has a sense of humor. So I would love to hear from you what simple decks you love. If you had to think of one deck you have where you just go and you don't want to have to think, you can see what the card is as soon as you draw it, and spot all the symbols right off the bat, what would that be? What deck is that for you? So I will put all the information below about how to find these decks, and I really appreciate you coming to visit and hope you're all staying safe and well. Take care.